Guys, welcome back to Unapologetically Angel. We are here with a very special guest. Y'all already know who it is. WNBA legend, the GOAT, my rookie coach, Miss Teresa Weatherspoon, aka Teaspoon. How are you?
I'm awesome. I'm glad to be here.
Loosen up.
I'm just letting you get busy because I am excited to be here. Finally, let me say that. Let me add that word. Finally.
Nobody was supposed to say this part out loud. Teresa Weatherspoon didn't just want to coach Angel Reese, felt pulled toward her, like unfinished business calling her name. The moment Angel stepped onto a national stage, loud, fearless, unapologetic, the league split in half. Fans cheered, executives flinched, and Teaspoon leaned forward because she recognized the warning signs. This wasn't about points or rebounds. This was about survival inside a system that loves stars until they stop being convenient. Teaspoon had lived it. She'd watched players get praised in public, doubted in meetings, and quietly boxed in when they refused to shrink. When she saw Angel, she didn't see a problem, she saw a mirror. Behind the scenes, conversations started happening fast, not about development, about control, about image, about how much edge was too much. And that's when Teaspoon made her move.
I was a proud big sister, you name it. I was so proud when you hit that runway.
Yeah.
When you came off jumping, I was jumping. I was like, yes, I was so proud of you. Yeah. Who would have done that?
Yeah.
That's really going outside of what you do.
Yeah.
But you trusted and believed in yourself so much. If you don't admire that
move, she didn't just want Angel on her roster. She wanted to protect her from what comes next, because she'd already seen it with Zion. The hype, the pressure, the smiling headlines hiding brutal expectations. She knew exactly how quickly love turns into blame. What no one expected was how dangerous that connection would become. A coach choosing a player this loudly, a player trusting a coach this deeply. In a league allergic to disruption, that bond wasn't inspiring, it was threatening. And the moment Teaspoon chose Angel, a clock started ticking. Everyone felt it, but nobody dared to admit what was about to explode next behind closed league doors. Long before the cameras found Angel Reese, before the tunnel fits and the viral clips and the think pieces dissecting her tone, Teresa Weatherspoon already understood the cost of being unapologetic in women's basketball. She came up in an era where toughness was demanded but rarely protected, where leaders were praised only if they fit neatly into a box someone else designed. She learned early that the game doesn't just test your body, it tests how much of yourself you're willing to give up to stay comfortable for others. That's why Angel stood out immediately, not because she was loud, not because she celebrated, but because she refused to perform humility on command. Angel didn't ask permission to take space. She didn't soften her confidence to make rooms easier. And in this league, that kind of presence doesn't go unnoticed, it gets studied. Teaspoon saw the patterns forming before the headlines did. The way praise came with conditions. The way criticism lingered longer for certain players. The way passion was reframed as attitude the moment results dipped. She had lived through versions of it herself. She had watched teammates get quietly labeled. She had watched stars become difficult overnight. Angel's rise accelerated everything. From college dominance to instant pro spotlight, the pressure was relentless. Every missed shot magnified. Every gesture analyzed. Every quote twisted. And while fans argued online, front offices whispered about optics, branding, and control. The conversation was never just basketball. For Teaspoon, this wasn't theoretical. She had already seen what happens when the league decides it doesn't know what to do with a player who doesn't bend. She'd seen it with veterans pushed aside. She'd seen it with stars whose confidence made executives nervous. And she'd seen it explode on a global scale with Zion, how love turns into scrutiny, how patience evaporates, how the narrative shifts from future of the league to problem to manage. That history weighed heavy when she watched Angel navigate her rookie season. The highs were celebrated loudly, but the lows felt personal. Losses became indictments. Frustration became evidence. And suddenly, the conversation wasn't about growth, it was about tone. So when Teresa Weatherspoon wanted to coach Angel Reese, it wasn't about molding her into something safer. It was about creating a space where she wouldn't have to disappear to survive, where intensity wasn't punished, where mistakes didn't become moral failures. That kind of belief is rare and dangerous, because once a coach publicly commits to a player like that, it forces everyone else to pick a side, support or distance, empower or control, and inside a league still negotiating its identity. That choice doesn't stay quiet for long. What started as mentorship was already becoming something bigger, and the closer they worked, the more obvious it became. This wasn't just a basketball story anymore, it was a collision of history, ego, and a system that doesn't like being challenged. The moment Teresa Weatherspoon's name became publicly attached to Angel Reese, the temperature around Chicago shifted. What looked like a simple coaching decision on paper felt, behind the scenes, like a declaration of war. Front office meetings grew tense. Conversations stopped being about rotations and started orbiting around control, messaging, and optics. Angel wasn't just a player anymore, she was a narrative problem. Some people wanted managed, softened, or redirected. And Teaspoon, she wasn't interested in any of that from day one. Her approach clashed with the quiet expectations hovering over the organization. She coached Angel hard, but she also defended her loudly. She didn't flinch when Angel showed emotion. She didn't pull her aside to tell her to tone it down. Instead, she challenged her to be smarter, sharper, more disciplined without shrinking. That distinction mattered, and it didn't sit well with everyone. The first cracks appeared after a rough stretch of games. Losses piled up, social media turned feral, analysts started asking loaded questions, and suddenly, Angel's name was at the center of every post-game discussion, even when the issues were clearly systemic. That's when the whispers started leaking: anonymous quotes, sources close to the team, vague comments about locker room chemistry. Then came the shock. In a closed-door meeting that was supposed to be routine, the conversation took a sharp turn. According to multiple people in the room, Angel wasn't discussed as a developing star. She was discussed as a risk, a brand liability, someone who needed boundaries. And when Teaspoon pushed back firmly, unapologetically, the room went cold. That was the moment lines were drawn. Because what followed wasn't subtle. Coaching authority was questioned, decisions were second-guessed, communication chains mysteriously changed. And then, without warning, the situation escalated publicly. A suspension, carefully worded statements, vague explanations that left more questions than answers. To the outside world, it looked like discipline. Inside the building, it felt like a power move. And here's the twist no one saw coming. Angel wasn't the primary target. The tension had always been about Teresa Weatherspoon, her refusal to play politics, her unwillingness to distance herself from Angel, her history knowing too much about how organizations quietly push out voices that won't comply. Just like she'd seen with other stars, just like she'd lived through in different forms, the parallels to Zion weren't accidental. She'd watched how quickly protection turns into pressure, how support evaporates when expectations aren't met on someone else's timeline. By standing with Angel, Teaspoon forced the organization into a spotlight it didn't want. Every decision now carried weight. Every move was scrutinized. And instead of backing down, she doubled down, continuing to coach, to mentor, to publicly affirm Angel's value as more than a stat line. That defiance came at a cost. Because suddenly, the conversation shifted again, not just about Angel's future but about Teaspoon's. Rumors swirled, internal confidence eroded, and then came the second shock layered inside the first. Teresa Weatherspoon was out. No long explanation, no clear justification, just a sudden end that left players stunned and fans furious. Angel found out like everyone else, through the noise. And in that instant, everything crystallized. This wasn't about wins and losses. This was about power, control, and what happens when a coach refuses to let a player be diminished. The fallout was immediate. Silence from the organization, loud reactions from former players, and a single, haunting question spreading across the league. If standing up for your player gets you removed, what does that say about the system? And Angel Reese, she didn't say a word, which only made the storm bigger, because when someone like Angel goes quiet, it's never the end of the story, it's the moment right before the next explosion. Once Teresa Weatherspoon was gone, the silence inside the building became louder than any press conference. Practices felt different. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Eyes avoided each other in hallways. Angel Reese didn't need anyone to explain what had just happened. She could feel it. The message was clear without being spoken. The one person who had her back unconditionally had been removed. And now the spotlight was fully, brutally on her. That's when the escalation truly began. Front office leaks started hitting social media in carefully timed waves. Culture concerns, accountability issues, fit. None of it was specific. And that was the point. The vagueness allowed narratives to grow unchecked. Every missed layup became evidence. Every emotional reaction became a headline. Every clip was slowed down, replayed, dissected like a crime scene. It wasn't about basketball anymore. It was about control of the story. Angel felt it tightening around her. Teammates started getting pulled aside for check-ins. Coaches spoke in coded language. Meetings felt less like strategy sessions and more like interrogations. And then came the shift that made everything unmistakable. Angel's role began changing without explanation. Minutes fluctuated, touches disappeared, responsibilities shifted in ways that didn't match what was happening on the court. To fans, it looked like normal adjustments. To Angel, it felt like isolation, and then boom, the second major twist hit. A report surfaced claiming Angel Reese was frustrated internally and exploring future options. The timing was surgical. The source? Anonymous. The implication? Explosive. Suddenly, the narrative flipped from discipline to disloyalty, from young star under pressure to problem player plotting an exit, and the league watched as the internet lit the match. Angel hadn't said a word. Not one quote, not one tweet, not one cryptic emoji. That silence drove people crazy. Because behind the scenes, something far bigger was unfolding. Angel wasn't scrambling. She wasn't panicking. She was calculating. The same way she did on the glass, reading angles before anyone else saw them. Conversations were happening, quiet ones. With veterans, with players who had been through this exact cycle before, with people who recognized the pattern immediately. Praise, pressure, pushback, punishment, and here's where it twisted again. Teresa Weatherspoon wasn't done, sources close to her revealed. She had been documenting everything. Conversations, shifts in tone, decisions that didn't add up, not for revenge, but for clarity. And as whispers of that documentation spread, the energy around the organization changed overnight. Statements got softer, messaging got safer. People who had been bold days earlier suddenly went quiet. Because now, the story wasn't just about Angel Reese. Anymore, it was about what happens when power gets uncomfortable. The league tried to steady the ship. Executives emphasized growth. Commentators urged patience. But fans weren't buying it. They saw the pattern too clearly. Social media turned from critique to investigation. Old clips resurfaced. Former players spoke up. Comparisons were made to Zion, two other stars who were embraced publicly but squeezed privately. And Angel. She finally moved, but not the way anyone expected. Instead of lashing out, she elevated her play. Rebounds turned violent. Effort doubled. She dominated possessions that weren't designed for her. Every board felt like a statement. Every hustle play felt intentional. You could see it in her eyes. This wasn't survival mode. This was preparation. Because the real escalation wasn't happening on the court, it was happening in leverage. Merch numbers spiked. Engagement didn't dip, it exploded. The same people questioning her impact couldn't ignore the metrics screaming otherwise. And quietly, very quietly, teams around the league started paying attention. Not just to Angel the player, but to Angel the force, the one who draws attention whether the league likes it or not. That's when the realization hit Chicago like a gut punch. They weren't managing a situation. They were creating a countdown. And the most dangerous part, Angel Reese still hadn't said anything publicly. No denial, no confirmation, just performance, just presence, just pressure building with every game. Because when a player stops reacting and starts positioning, it usually means one thing. The next move is already in motion, and when it drops, it won't just change Angel Reese's future, expose exactly how much power the league really has left. The fallout didn't arrive quietly, it exploded. Within hours, timelines were flooded, not with box scores, but with arguments. Fans weren't debating rebounds or efficiency anymore, they were debating fairness, power, and why this story felt uncomfortably familiar. Every clip of Angel Reese hustling was paired with a question. Every slow-motion miss came with an agenda. And every media panel suddenly had an opinion on her attitude, her tone, her fit, words that felt loaded no matter how carefully they were said. Angel Reese became the center of a storm she didn't create but couldn't escape. Chicago fans split in half overnight. One side demanded patience, loyalty, trust in the process. The other saw betrayal, mismanagement, and another star being mishandled in real time. Old wounds reopened. Names like Candace Parker, Sylvia Fowles, Gabby Williams, Marina Mabrey started trending again, stitched together into a brutal pattern that was impossible to ignore. This wasn't just about one player. It was about an organization's history colliding with its present, and the league felt it. Press conferences turned tense. Executives spoke in rehearsed phrases, carefully avoiding specifics. Kathy Engelbert emphasized growth and balance, but fans heard deflection. Analysts tried to neutralize the moment, but neutrality only poured fuel on the fire. Silence was read as complicity. Every known answer became a headline of its own. Angel's phone never stopped buzzing. Some messages were love, others were venom. Former players reached out privately, offering advice they wished they'd taken sooner. Protect yourself. Document everything. Don't let them rewrite you. At the same time, critics sharpened their knives. Hot takes questioned her maturity, viral clips framed confidence as ego, and worst of all, the noise began creeping toward her teammates, dragging the entire locker room into the mess. You could see it during games. The bench reactions were tighter, celebrations felt muted, mistakes carried extra weight, every huddle looked heavier than the last. This wasn't just basketball pressure, it was emotional gravity, the kind that pulls everyone down if it goes unchecked. And yet, Angel kept playing. Not smiling, not performing for approval, just working, grinding, absorbing contact like she was built for it. Social media. Chaos reached another level. Hashtags trended, reaction videos racked up millions of views. Some called her the future, others called her overrated. Some accused the league of pushing narratives, others accused Angel of playing the victim. And through it all, one comparison kept surfacing whether anyone wanted it to or not: Caitlin Clark. The contrast was everywhere. Clark was praised as transformative, celebrated as the engine of growth. Angel was framed as complicated, polarizing, difficult. The numbers didn't justify the gap in tone, and fans noticed. They asked uncomfortable questions. Why did impact look different depending on who delivered it? Why was confidence applauded in one star and scrutinized in another? The discourse grew louder, sharper, more emotional by the day. And then came the emotional breaking point. During a post-game moment caught on camera, Angel sat alone at the end of the bench, towel over her head, staring into nothing. No tears, no outburst, just stillness. That clip went viral within minutes. Some called it defeat, others called it focus, but those who knew better saw something else entirely. Resolve, because this wasn't a player collapsing under pressure. This was a player absorbing information behind the scenes. The sky scrambled to regain control of the narrative. Statements were softened, language shifted, praise reappeared where criticism once lived. But it was too late. The public had already connected the dots. Trust had cracked. And once that happens, no amount of PR can fully seal it. Angel Reese had become more than a player in this moment. She was a mirror, a reflection of how the league handles power, personality, and players who refuse to shrink. And the emotional fallout wasn't just hers, it belonged to everyone watching, arguing, choosing sides, and realizing that something bigger than a season was unfolding. Because as the noise peaked and the pressure mounted, one truth became undeniable. This situation was no longer fixable with minutes, rotations, or talking points. It was headed toward a decision. And when that decision finally comes, it won't just define Angel Reese, it will expose exactly who the WNBA is willing to protect, and who it's willing to test. Just when it looked like the chaos had reached its ceiling, the real twist surfaced quietly, almost deliberately. Like someone finally deciding to stop whispering. It didn't come from a press release. It didn't come from a reporter. It didn't even come from Angel Reese. It came from behind the curtain. Late one night, long after the cameras shut off and the timelines slowed down, league insiders started talking. Not publicly, privately, texts, DMs, side conversations, and the same sentence kept showing up in different forms. This isn't about basketball anymore. Because while fans were fighting online and analysts were yelling on TV, something else was happening in the background. Meetings that weren't on the schedule, calls that weren't supposed to be made, conversations that didn't include coaches. Angel Reese wasn't being discussed as a player, she was being discussed as leverage. That's when the tone shifted. People close to the situation began noticing subtle changes. The way executives spoke about her future, the way long-term fits suddenly replaced development, the way silence followed her name in rooms where her name used to dominate. It wasn't loud, it was calculated, and Angel felt it. You could see it in her body language. Less reaction to whistles, fewer glances at the bench. A player who used to play with fire now played with control. Like someone who had stopped waiting for validation and started preparing for something else. Then the rumor dropped. Not confirmed, not denied, just floating there, heavy enough to change everything. Angel Reese, according to multiple sources, had begun quietly exploring her options, not demanding, not threatening. Exploring, the same way stars before her had learned to do when loyalty only flowed one direction. The irony was impossible to miss. The league was louder than ever, ratings climbing, attention exploding, new eyes everywhere, and yet, behind the growth, The same old patterns were repeating. Talented players becoming problems the moment they stopped fitting neatly into someone else's plan, and that's when Caitlin Clark's name the story in a different way. Not as a rival on the court but as a contrast in strategy. Clark was being built around, protected, positioned as untouchable. Angel, on the other hand, was being tested, pushed, pressured to conform. Two stars, two paths, same league, completely different treatment. Fans noticed, and once fans notice, things don't stay quiet. Speculation exploded overnight. Was Angel done in Chicago? Was this another franchise fumbling a generational talent? Was the league watching another star learn, in real time, that impact doesn't always equal security? Then came the final, chilling moment. After a tough loss, Angel was asked a simple question, not aggressive, not loaded. Do you see yourself here long term? She paused, not for drama, not for effect. She paused, like someone choosing honesty over safety. I'm focused on winning, she said, wherever that is. That was it, no smile, no clarification, no reassurance. And in that silence, everything cracked wide open. Because players don't say wherever unless they've already started imagining elsewhere. They don't detach unless they've felt the ground shift beneath them. And they don't speak that carefully unless they know people are listening who aren't fans. The league tried to move on the next day. New games, new headlines, new drama, but it didn't work. Because everyone knew the truth. This wasn't the end of a storyline. It was the beginning of a decision that could change Chicago's future, a decision that could expose the league's priorities, a decision that could redefine Angel Reese's career forever. And the scariest part, the people in power still don't seem to realize that once a player like Angel Reese stops asking for permission, the next move is never small. And now it's on you, because this story isn't just about Angel Reese. It's about what happens when a league grows faster than its willingness to protect the players driving that growth. It's about who gets patience, who gets pushed, and who gets quietly pressured to fall in line. You've seen the clips, you've heard the quotes, you've watched the narrative shift in real time. But the real question is this: are fans finally seeing behind the curtain? Or will this get buried like so many stories before it? If you believe Angel Reese is being treated unfairly, say it. If you think the Chicago Sky are mishandling a generational talent, call it out. If you believe the WNBA has a double standard when it comes to which stars are protected and which are challenged, don't stay silent. Because leagues don't change from boardrooms. They change when fans refuse to let uncomfortable stories disappear. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't hold back. Like this video so it reaches people who aren't hearing this side. Subscribe if you want the truth, not the polished version. And most importantly, stay locked in, because Angel Reese's next move isn't just about basketball. It might expose everything the league doesn't want to admit. And when that happens, you'll want to say you were watching from the start.